Hey everybody, it's Josh here. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to keep columns on mobile in Divi. So what I mean by this is when you're working with Divi and you have a row with multiple columns, so for example, this row has 3 columns and there's 3 images here. When you look at this on tablet and mobile, generally these elements are going to stack on each other. So if I take a peek at the tablet version of this, you can see right there, all of these columns start stacking on each other. And then same thing for mobile as well. Now that's generally fine. However, there's a lot of circumstances I find myself in to where it would be really nice to be able to just have these elements next to each other, even on mobile. So for example, these 3 logos can totally be smaller and can be next to each other on mobile. One reason I like doing this is because if you have a lot of elements on your page, if everything is stacked on top of each other on mobile and tablet, it can make for a lot of scrolling. So anywhere I can, I like to try to stack elements next to each other on mobile, and that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create this look to where we have the same thing, but check this out. We look at it on tablet. There we go. They're right next to each other, and then same thing on mobile. The logos remain right next to each other across all devices. So practically, here's an example of a site that I built that has this effect to where this home inspector has like 12 main services. And I did not want all of these stacking on top of each other on mobile because that would be a lot of scrolling just through the services section. So you'll see here, once we get to the breakpoint of tablet, everything goes to 3 rows, right like that. So that way, again, they're not stacking one by one on tablet and mobile. So that's the look we're going to come up with. Now, I do want to say we're just going to add a little bit of CSS to be able to pull this off, which is why I think it's so important to know at least the basics of CSS. And this is why I created a whole course on Divi and CSS. So I just wanted to say that if you like this tutorial and you find yourself wanting to learn CSS better, be sure to click the link below and you'll get 10% off my Divi CSS course. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in and start having some fun. So first things first, we need to add a class where we're going to put our CSS. And this is where there are a lot of different options because you could customize the CSS inside each module. You could mess with the row or the whole section in itself. What I found best in this case is to add a class in the row, and then the class that we add, we're going to be able to add custom CSS to, which is going to affect every column and every element in that row. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the row settings, go to advanced, go to class ID and classes, or CSS ID and classes, and then we're going to add a class here. Now I'm going to call this 3 columns. You can call this anything you want. Now I found that like previously I used to do things like 3col or 3-call, but I found that a lot of plugins I was using had the same type of classes and they were conflicting. So it's best when you do a custom class like this to try to do something unique, and I found spelling it out seems to work the best. So we're going to call this 3 columns, and we're going to roll with that. So let's go ahead and save that. Now, from here is where we're going to start adding some CSS and start having some fun. Ideally, you would put your CSS in your child theme style sheet, but in this case, I'm just going to go up to my theme customizer, and we're going to put our CSS here, and this way we can see it live as well. I do have a tutorial on where to put your CSS, so I'll link to that below. But again, we're just going to go ahead and put our CSS in here for now. So let's go down to our section here. We know that our class is added and we're ready to start having some fun. So first things first, let's add that class, 3 columns. And let's add our brackets. All right, now one very important step before we get to customizing this for tablet and mobile, and we're going to use inspect element for this, is that we need to target each one of the elements in this row that's under this class. So let's go ahead and look in a little more detail at one of these elements. And you can see that right here, I've got the whole column selected. If I go down here, that this column has a class of ETPB column. So this is what we're going to use. So those of you who have been through my CSS course know that you can merge 2 classes together, which is super, super handy. So check this out. I'm going to take this class, and you can see by selecting that, it selected all the columns here. And I'm going to put this right after, with a space, right after my class that I set up, which basically is saying this. Any column that is under the class of 3 columns will have these effects. So that's the way we can target just these columns without messing up anything on the page. So with that in mind, let's go down here to see where it breaks. And about there. So what I want to do is, with that selected there, I want to adjust first off the width. Now if I go with, let's see, we want to do rows of 3, so we need to take 100 and divide that by 3. And for right now, let's just call this 33%. You can see automatically it's going to work just like that. We didn't have to touch anything else. All we had to do was just adjust the width, which says, hey, all these columns within that class, I want you to bounce that down to 33%. Now let's scroll in a little bit further. Okay, now that looks really good on tablet. And if we scroll in, let's see, because I think we need to add perhaps important to make sure this works on mobile. So sure enough, yep, you can see right there, there's still some mobile settings that are overriding that. So what I want to do is add an important tag after this to say, hey, no matter where we are, no matter what screen size, we want this to be 33%. And there we go, looking good. So it's that easy to actually technically create this. Now, the only thing about this that we've done to this point is check this out. Let me exit out of Inspect Element. When I drag this out to desktop, you'll see that things get a little bit dicey right about there because we're working with these elements and we've kind of assigned some widths that are adjusting it on desktop as well. So what I recommend doing is adding a MediaQuery. Oops, let me open that up. Add a MediaQuery, which is going to say, hey, only make this, only activate this look on tablet and mobile. So what we're going to do is add a MediaQuery, which will look something like this. We'll do media only screen, and we'll call this max width. So we only want this to go max width of 980, which is the breakpoint for most tablets. So we'll go 980 pixels, and then we need to add our brackets. And then we're going to throw this CSS inside the brackets there. And there we go. So now check that out. We've got our nifty little trick there that looks great on desktop. It's going to look good on tablet. And it's going to look really good on mobile as well. And we'll go ahead and we'll adjust. I'll tell you what, let's back out of the theme customizer here. Let's publish this. And you can see it's only one line of actual CSS. We, again, in short, we set up a class and we said, hey, all the columns inside that class only have a width of 33%. And we put this under our media query that is going to say, hey, anything that goes up to 980 pixels is going to have that look on mobile for this section. So again, let's go ahead and just take a peek at this. Let's just make sure everything's looking good. There's tablet looking good. And there's mobile looking great as well. Now, if you want to do different widths, very easy to do. All you have to do is adjust the actual percentage. So let's back out of the visual builder here, just to make this a little easier, because we're going to use Inspect Element. So let's right-click Inspect Element. So again, let's say on mobile, you didn't want to have it 30%. Maybe you wanted it to be 50%, like you wanted rows of 2. What I can do is find that class there, and there's our 3 columns class. And actually, I think I'll need to zoom into tablet view to be able to see that because it was hidden. And there we go. You can see right there. We found that class. So let's say on tablet, I wanted it to be rows of 2. All I'd have to do is adjust it to 50%. And then now it's rows of 2. And then you can adjust this as well. You could do different media queries to say that, hey, I only want this to be 3 rows on tablet, but then I want it to be 2 rows on mobile. So for example, I tell you what, I don't want to leave you hanging here. Let's do that real quick. Let's go into our theme customizer, and we're going to replicate what we just set up. And we're going to say that with this class of 3 columns, it's going to be 3 columns on tablet, but then 2 columns on mobile. And this is where adjusting the name of the class might be better. Like you might put responsive columns as a class or something. So I'm going to do 479, which is the breakpoint for mobile. And we're going to do 50%. Now let's publish this. And one last time, my friends, let's look at this out on the website. And we go here. So we should see this stay 3 on tablet. There we go. And then now we should see it break to 2 on mobile. There's mobile right there. So I just had to look at the mobile view. But check that out. Pretty cool, right? I mean, just a little bit of CSS, and we've got this look that can really help take our Divi designs to the next level. Now, what I'm going to do in the actual post is I'm going to include all the percentages for 2 rows, 3 rows, and 4 rows. So all you have to do is add a class to the row, and then every element you put in here is going to align just like that perfectly. So again, if I were to, last thing I'll do here is just duplicate this. So let's say I had more columns to add. Well, all I need to do is I could bring more columns in there, or I can just duplicate this row, and this is going to retain just like that. And then same thing on mobile. It's going to have that same effect on mobile, all with that class that we added. So super, super handy. Really, really cool trick. I use this all the time across a lot of different sites. So check out, again, the notes below, which will have the code for this. If you're looking to get more involved with CSS, don't miss out on the code below so you can get 10% off my Divi CSS course. And I hope this tutorial helps you guys out and helps you make some awesome Divi website designs. All right, guys, see you on the next tutorial.